Melissa Harrison, going and introducing yourself. Tell us what you currently do and what criteria makes you an authority in the space that you act in.
Well, hi, Chris. Thank you for having me here. I'm always careful about calling myself an authority, but I am a licensed attorney and have been for 21 years now. And through the course of that, I've picked up a few things along the way. I'm also a real estate investor myself and have been for 20 years. So I've got a pretty interesting perspective, I guess, coming from a legal perspective as well as an investor perspective. And I think that's been helpful to me and hopefully some of my clients along the way.
Tell us what made you want to get into the profession that you're currently in.
Well, as to the attorney profession, I always just somehow I was one of those, I guess, lucky people that I just always knew what I wanted to do. And I do understand now talking to other people, that's not always the case. We all have different paths. But I, from my earliest age, knew I wanted to be an attorney. And I think what led me to that is I wanted to help people solve their problems. I'm one of those people that I really enjoy helping people solve their problems. For the people that are really woo woo that follow the Enneagram, I'm a one wing two. And what that means is that two side of me really enjoys helping people see their way through difficulty. So that's what led me to the law. The funny story, I guess somewhat funny story that led me to real estate investing. Right after I graduated law school, I took a great job with a law firm here in North Mississippi. Had my first child almost immediately, took the bar 6 months pregnant. Most people would say that's not a great plan, but that was my path. I wouldn't change a thing. But, pretty quick out of the gate, I saw, hey, I'm not going to be able to be the kind of mom I want to be in these early years if I don't do something that I can kind of make my own. And so I made the choice to do what at the time seemed crazy, but now is absolutely the best thing to do. Go out on my own at a very early time. And at the beginning, I'm like, man, I've got $70,000 worth of student loan debt. I've left this really great job and I'm kind of just starting out. I need to come up with a plan. And so I just started I'm a researcher, I always have been. And so back in 2000, I started researching ways that I could build wealth and do things to supplement my profession while I was building my practice. And I stumbled across real estate, as so many people do, and realized pretty quickly that was going to be the way to go. I did have the benefit that I had a grandfather that in his later years, he had started dabbling in real estate, handful of rentals here and there. And so I had kind of seen the benefits of that. And so that made me a little bit less apprehensive than maybe I would have been. But the funny story is my first property that I bought, my goal was it was two houses, two mobile homes. It was a package deal because somebody was needing to sell out in a hurry. And my goal was when I bought it, if this cash flows like I plan, it's going to make my student loan payment. And it did. And it did very well from there. And that was really a great way to start out for me because I've always said buying just one can be kind of, if it's empty or if you've got to replace the roof or there's a refrigerator out, that hurts. But when you,
Right.
but being able to have that benefit to start out immediately with a package, I kind of was insulated from the downside of it, because
Right.
even one or two were having issues, the others could carry it. And so I really quickly saw the benefit of, hey, having more, if you increase your volume, you're going to be offset from a lot of the things that maybe you wouldn't be with just one or two. And the rest, as they say, is history. And we
Now,
we
did
never looked back. Yeah.
did you do any official like classroom training or anything for your real estate?
No, I think having the benefit of having a law degree, that gave me a perspective. Maybe I wasn't starting from a completely blind perspective. I had worked for attorneys in the past, even in my undergraduate time at Mississippi State. So I had a very practical understanding of that process, titles and deeds. And so I don't want to skip over how useful that was. And I don't take that for granted that I understood things immediately from the beginning. That you're right. Somebody coming in without that legal background would probably need to avail themselves of some additional training to be able to do that.
Right.
But I understood, the process of contracts and title work and setting up LLCs and, those kinds of things and things you could do, things you couldn't do. Those, even though I was a relatively new attorney, those were things I knew from my experience and my training. And that was certainly a benefit.
Yeah, it's a great segue into the questioning because what I want to do is gear this towards our real estate investors in the beginning of this conversation that are just getting started. Matter of fact, maybe not have even taken any action yet because I know when I first started, I was like, So what do? I just call somebody up and I say, "Hey, will you take this?" And they say yes. And then I have to go to my bank account, write a check, hand it to them. Like, what paperwork goes along with this? How do I know there's not a mechanic lien from the handyman that did some work or back taxes, all that good stuff? So we know when you've got a realtor and you're buying your personal home, they're going to walk you through this process. You're pretty much paying them commission for being a consultant to make sure that you don't get yourself into a bunch of trouble. But as a
Mhm.
real estate investor, most of the time we're not coupled up with a realtor. If you're smart and you're doing it in the very beginning, you've either got somebody experienced or you're coupled with a realtor and you're walking this process. But let's say that they just go out without a mentor, without a realtor. When do they need to get a real estate attorney involved with the process?
Well, it depends on how savvy they are and what their background is. If it's very little, they need to, whether it's an attorney or a realtor or some sort of professional or a mentor immediately. You got to, you can't, this is not, this real estate is, in my view, one of the best things in the world that the people that enjoy that kind of thing can do to build wealth, but it's not something you can just jump off in, you know, without consequence. It's, very serious, it's very expensive, and even if you are fortunate enough that you've got a bank account full of money, you still, in fact, sometimes that some of the things I have seen in some people, not necessarily investors, but maybe people that, they have the means and they're like, "Oh, I see this house, I want to buy it for cash. I don't need any help." And I've literally had that happen before. I've had a bank call me before and say, "Hey, we've got this sweet little lady that's trying to wire, $150,000 out, and we're a little bit worried. Could you check on that for her?" And sure enough, thankfully it wasn't a scam, although in some cases it could be, but it was a situation where there were some title issues that had to be resolved, and she was about to wire away money and was going to have kind of a title mess on her hands. And because we caught that and we're able to say, "Oh, wait, you need to have them do some legwork before you pay them and get the deed," that saved her thousands of dollars. And it took them about 6 or 7 months to clear it up. There actually had to be some chancery litigation in that particular situation. So, all that to say, sometimes in the instances where you have somebody that is fortunate enough to have that money, they're the ones maybe that are at risk. The people that can't do that aren't, because if you go to a lender or even if you're using private money, the people involved in that's going to be smart enough to say, "Okay, we're going to need to run some title work and see what's
Right.
happening." Or people can get in trouble sometimes is where they're like, "Hey, I've got this money and I want to invest it. I'm not getting any interest in the bank and I have it. I'm just going to write them a check and they're going to give me a deed." And with no understanding of that process, that even someone who's well meaning could have title issues maybe they don't know about, it can be a real problem. And so I would just say it depends on where you are, but regardless of where you are in the process, you need to make sure that you educate yourself through courses or mentors or connections with professionals one way or the other. And realtors, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't want to pay that commission." I will say, particularly for a new investor, if you find a high octane realtor that realizes you're going to really make some deals and work, they'll save you a lot of trouble, especially if you don't have the time maybe to wait through that. That's something to think about. And the benefit of that is you've got a little bit of help and you're not all by yourself. Certainly, people can do it all by themselves. And I laugh, when we first started our first deals, I don't think we had any realtors. It was, I don't know, you may even be too young to remember the advertiser. Do you?
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
We would go, that was my husband, Jason. We were doing it together. He was primarily coaching and teaching at the time. When it started, it was primarily me. He didn't really have time. And then as my practice grew and took on more of my time, that kind of, we handed that off and it became, now today, really, it's more him than me as far as the day to day management, certainly. But we would love to go to a convenience store and get an advertiser. And we'd go through the advertiser and we look, when I tell you, we found 45 acres in Guntown with a 10 mobile home trailer park set up. That was one of our best deals ever. We've since sold it. But when you're first starting out, those kind of deals, and it was just fun. We enjoyed that process. So we just go through the advertiser and find these deals and go look at them completely on our own. But again, I had the benefit that I had the forms, "Hey, I'm ready to do this. Let's do a contract," and knew the process in a way that maybe somebody that didn't have that background. If you don't have a connection with a realtor, you do probably need to have a connection at least with a real estate attorney or someone that's going to be able to help you take that next step, because you're going to need to get to the next step. You've done the deal,
Right.
assume negotiated everything and haven't messed anything up. And frankly, if you're brand new, that's unlikely if you haven't had some sort of training or interacted with some people that can help you out. And most people that are successful in this area, I find, are happy to do that. Positive people, they know there's infinite money, there are infinite deals. There's no need to be jealous or worried about somebody
Right.
stealing the deal. They understand that there's plenty of everything. Now, people that come from a scarcity mindset, that may not be the case.
That's right.
But people that understand there's infinite deals, infinite ways that people can be successful, they're going to be glad to help you. And I found that to be true through the years. Even though I had that legal background, we've had several mentors that were maybe 10, 15, 20 years ahead of us that were always very glad to sit down and talk to us and share their knowledge and expertise. And I got the benefit sometimes of the lessons they had learned in a harder way. And I think everybody that does this long enough, if they've got the right mindset, they're going to find those people too.